Hi, Spots and Cheap Pops. You're on the air.
Yeah, no, FTR, to me, it's a situation where they're stale. They've been stale for a while. And the question is, it just looked like something was in the works a couple weeks ago prior to the Edge thing. And then you have this Edge thing where now Dax leaves. I just thought it was weird. There was something brewing. But to your point, Christian is about to lose his family. How do you make Christian a sympathetic character, which is going to be what I think we're going to see? That's going to take some doing. It's going to help that the biggest problem was Luchasaurus. No, it wasn't, though. Talking about dead fathers and things of that nature.
That's the thing. He's gonna be a father without a family now.
He's going to need a brother.
He needs a brother.
He's going to need a brother. And that was something that was in the works. You and I talked about it when Dax had his podcast. He said a dream match that he wanted to have, this was a couple years ago, was FTR versus Christian and Edge. And he said that's a lot more realistic. He said it in the interview. He said it's a lot more realistic than people think. It's something these guys have talked about. They all live close to each other. They're bestest of friends. Edge literally, I'm sorry. Cope even gave those two guys their shoot name shout outs on WWE Raw. This is going to be something that's what's kind of cool when I see something like that. MVP in the Hurt Business, and you see Edge and Christian to be able to kind of create their own creative juices without Vince McMahon saying, no, you can't.
Right.
And oftentimes we get the best versions. Bryan Danielson's best version of his career was in AEW. And so it's going to be really cool to see Edge and Cope and Christian. The CNC Hurtin' Factory. It's going to be wild. And all of a sudden, you can make this tag team division actually extraordinarily viable. It already is. Murder Machines and Bobby Lashley. And now you're talking about FTR actually going to be relevant again. And then you bring in Christian and Edge as a tag team. What was your thoughts, guys? I mean, that would be the better move. And we started this conversation with me saying, oh, FTR. I remember I called FTR breaking up.
Yeah. And, I saw the moment where there was like some sort of like animosity or just some heat between Dax and Edge and Cash. And it was just sort of weird, and Dax just sort of walked off by himself. And, it was sort of a nice like undertone that was going on there, little subtle things. And when you mentioned that, hey, they're going to be breaking up, I'm looking at who's in the ring. I don't really imagine Cash going on as a singles like competitor, and I didn't imagine like Cash and like Edge together, if you will. So I'm like, I think ideally, I would go and swerve Edge with Cash turning on him. That FTR officially heals, and then that would cause a reason for Edge and Christian to like reunite. Like we were mentioning, like Christian's having issues with his family. They wouldn't actually need each other at this point. And then all of a sudden we're strolling down memory lane with Edge and Christian against FTR, which if you put a world title between those teams, that could be epic.
Yeah. And you still have the Hurt Business to contend with. So
exactly.
It's going to be wild. They've turned, it's amazing. Your biggest stars in your company, AEW has put their top stars in their company on top of the tag division a few times. Swerve in our glory. Another example, Hangman and Kenny.
Yep.
So they've done it.
They could do something really cool, and even including the Hurt Business there, even if it's like those three main tag teams are like feuding with each other for some time. And listen, these guys give it their all every night, but also it's a way to maybe extend and move them away from maybe even some injuries because they're splitting up some stuff in tag matches. They can kind of gauge what the way they feel each and every day. And some of these guys are getting a little bit older too. So, but nostalgia wise, seeing Edge and Christian in AEW, that is something that is going to pique some interest.
I mean, just seeing them tag team again. I mean, they didn't have the longest run, but no one's going to tell me they weren't the best tag team out of the Hardys and the Dudleys. I know that's sacrilege to a lot of people, because those two teams stayed together much longer and they were able to build a lot more to their legacy. For sure.
Yeah.
Both of them. And I don't know if you can pick the Hardys or the Dudleys. They both have a very similar legacy, a very similar history, really, with the exception, I mean, I think there's three that became big stars outside of WWE, and Devon never really got that to that next level. The other three did with Bubba. But Christian and Edge, they were two, they both have exceeded, I believe, the rest of them in terms of a career. And maybe you say Matt Hardy, but I'm sorry, Jeff Hardy, maybe. I don't think so. I think Jeff Hardy has a lot more tarnishes in his career. Christian has been multiple-time TNA champion, world heavyweight champion in WWE, ECW champion when ECW was real, but still ECW champion. Christian, and then you have Edge, who arguably the biggest and best rival in John Cena's career, and also probably the top heel of the 2000s in WWE outside of maybe Triple H. So when they were a tag team, I mean, they weren't the most entertaining with the 5-second pose and all the comedy shit that they did. And the fact, by the way, they won both first two TLC matches.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, for my money, out of all those three, Edge and Christian are definitely my favorite out of those three during that heyday.
And always were, yeah.
Yeah, I was totally on board with them. They were the most entertaining. They were the heels that you loved, really. They were just so obnoxious. It was great. I totally agree with you on there. And they have had great careers on the singles level also.
Thank you so much for watching High Spots and Cheap Pops. For Vladi Dottie, this is Silicon Steve Alley. Hit the subscribe button and let us know what you think. Thank you for watching, and here endeth the lesson.